Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I hope you're having a great day as we continue to really drill down on the people who are working in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, we have a great guest today. I've got a few things I want to say about tourism before we get to Judy Young, who's the executive director for the Coastal Mississippi Tourism Effort, our one very important regional effort that we do here in Coastal Mississippi. Proud of the work that they're doing. She'll be joining us here in just a second, but I wanted to kind of give you a big picture view of kind of where I'm sitting as it relates to Mississippi Gulf Coast and our tourism effort. I think, first of all, our tourism foundation is very strong. If you look back in 2024, we'll get the exact number of visitors. I read a number, 15 million. That may or may not be correct, but it's a lot. I think 15 million is pretty close. We're talking about pumping over $2 billion directly into our economy. So, you know, when you think about tourism is way beyond gaming. It's how all these entities work together to create this wonderful place for people to visit. And ultimately, it helps make our economy extremely strong, supports jobs and businesses. Everything that makes this place tick is one of the reasons it ticks well is because tourism is hitting on a lot of cylinders. I mean, we're a coastal community. Everybody knows that. We take our beaches for granted, but that's one of the big draws. And look, when's the last time you just sat on the seawall and looked at the beach? The beaches are extremely clean, and people love them. That drive down Highway 90 is one of the most unique drives like it in the entire country. Well, again, we take it for granted. But the people who come here to visit us, they don't take it for granted. You know, the signature events like Cruising the Coast do take advantage of the fact that this is a coastal community. And then, you know, of course, Mardi Gras is a big draw. That's coming up here pretty soon. These things, all of these things, you know, sort of combine with smart marketing from Coastal Mississippi Tourism that Judy leads, that she'll be joining me in a minute. That team's working well together to maximize the dollars they have available to them, combined with the casinos and the marketing that the casinos are doing. I think it's really putting us on the national stage. So as we head into 2026, you know, there's a lot of momentum, but you know, there's some opportunities in front of us. We've got to work together. We got to be smart. And if we do the right things going forward, I think we have a lot to be thankful for. But you can't talk about the market, the tourism market here, without mentioning gaming. And there are some headwinds on gaming. If you look at the 12 casinos we have, they're terrific resorts, beautiful properties. Excuse me. Excuse me. They have great restaurants, shows, pools, you know, all the amenities that they bring to the table. You know, the revenue that they generate are leaders in our state. So at the end of the day, I think we've got great resorts here that really other communities would really die for. I'm confident that's the case. But the challenge is in seeing growth. I mean, revenues have been flat, and unfortunately, it's somewhat down a bit lately because nearby states can bet with their phones from home, and that's something we got to watch. We got to pay attention to this. And this point is extremely important, incidentally. Younger visitors want even more experiences beyond gaming that's tied to outdoors, family fun, and really, honestly, our unique coastal vibe. That's something we bring to the table. And incidentally, the more we focus on those things, the more we strengthen our own quality of life. So this Gulf to table seafood culinary experience that we bring, outdoor adventures, whether it's the trails or beaches or scenic drives or the boutique hotel stays that we have. I mean, I could list these on. You know, the opportunities to go to our barrier islands and the art diversification that exists here. I mean, all these things appeal beyond gaming. So we've got a lot to work with there. There is a great opportunity in front of us. I mean, the truth is that non-gaming will always be a significant strength for us. One thing that's really important, though, and it's something our legislature's got to think about this year, is mobile sports betting. Because if you think about the amount of dollars that have been lost to neighboring states like Louisiana, Tennessee, and Arkansas, I did some research on them in the last few days, and we're talking about billions of dollars. It's a big number that they're gaining, and some of those dollars are to our, you know, unfortunate. That's negative to us. We need robust mobile sports betting options here that's tied to brick and mortar. We'll do it in a smart way. but so we can pull some of those dollars back, and especially as it relates to the younger demographics. The big debates about that. We're lucky that we had the major players here in the gaming industry: MGM, Caesars, Boyd, Penn. These are the ones who are best positioned to put money into the upgrades of their existing facilities, and you kind of freshen the ideas that are emerging in around the world. Really, you think about MGM, what they have access to be able to pull best practices and bring those to the Beau Rivage. Same thing goes for Harrah's through Caesars and so on. I think we're in a good position as it relates to that. I have an update. We'll get to this in a second when we talk to Judy, but I've worried about Alabama, but I'm kind of feeling better about Alabama these days, and I'll explain to you why. They missed approving gaming by one vote last legislative session, but doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum there. The bottom line is I think we've got a strong foundation to work with. We're the envy of a lot of places. We've got challenges, but every community has challenges. I think if we continue to push to enhance what we have, modernize what we have, and push for changes that enable us to win, I think we've got many, many positive years ahead of us. So just wanted to kind of start with that, and then we'll build off of that as we continue our conversation with Judy Young, who's the executive director for Coast of Mississippi Tourism. Judy, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I saw you shake your head when I talked about 15 million visitors. Even when I wrote it, and I don't remember the source, it might have been even your website that I got that from. But that's a big number. That's a really big number. We're bringing a lot of people into this community, aren't we?
We are, and it's continued to grow. The growth in visitation numbers has, I guess, in 2022 we were about 12 million. So that's 3 million plus in growth in 3 years, give or take, because I think that number is from actually 2 years. That number's from 2024. So the 2025 numbers are coming out. It's been phenomenal, but it bodes well for a diverse, dynamic regional destination.
Hey, listen, I enjoyed watching the WLOX interview recently with Tate Reeves, 2 parts over 2 Sundays. And what I liked about it was he spoke so practically about the importance of tourism, especially in coastal Mississippi. And one of the things that he pointed out is that we don't only bring people here that contribute to our economy and so on, but there's another aspect to it that well, that people who come here, some of them actually decide to move here. Or they certainly buy a second home here. We see that an awful lot, but he seems to really appreciate that there's a big time multiplier effect from tourism that's just not about them spending money in the tourism realm, but it's about them literally putting an anchor down here. How often do you think about that part of it?
I think about that a lot. Later on, if we can talk about earned media, what I appreciated about the governor is that he acknowledges that tourism agencies and destination management organizations are the only entities that are charged with increasing a positive perception of the state, the region, and the destinations 24/7. We are paid to do that, and we are doing it well. Our storytelling is great. Our national initiatives have grown. Our international initiatives have grown. And, we're beating the drum every day about the positive things in Mississippi, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Well, so for people who have never heard of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, or maybe you have many times on the show but just don't remember, it is a regional organization. I'll let Judy kind of break it down. Also, it's important to understand where they get their money from. And what is important, if you just look at the pure dollars that are available to them in relation to what the casinos are spending, for example, it pales in comparison. Their goal is to multiply those dollars, is to find matching funds, to find partnerships, to find in-kind marketing that happens. And there's a lot there, and it's very strategic in the way that they approach it. So, Judy, why don't you kind of put it all together so people can understand what it is you're doing and how do you maximize your budget?
We are actually funded by a dedicated regional lodging tax that folks who stay overnight pay into, as is Visit Mississippi. Our entire job is to drive the economy through overnight visitation, which is importing new dollars into a community. We use those dollars that are dedicated regional tax on lodging to plow it back into the product to increase that visitation. So it's not a sales tax. It's not a local tax. It is a regional dedicated tax. And we do that through marketing, promotions, advertising, earned media, or getting stories from influencers and publications. We also do sales for groups, conventions, and conferences.
And we'll break each of those down here in just a second. The in-kind is really important. And if you add it up, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. We'll continue our conversation with Judy Young right after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. We're visiting with Judy Young, who's the Executive Director for Coastal Mississippi, which is the regional tourism effort here in Coastal Mississippi. And she was just breaking down where the money comes from that run the organization and their marketing effort, and then the various ways in which they create benefit for Coastal Mississippi. As a former publisher, I was always super impressed with those organizations who could come to us, meet with us. Maybe it's an editorial board, maybe it's some kind of co-promotion that we do. It comes in, maybe it's just an article that we do. But essentially, they were bringing to us great ideas for articles and stories that readers would enjoy. And essentially what it created for them is earned media. In other words, they got free something that ultimately was able to leverage. And so you put a number, if you were to put a number to that, the number of readers the Sun Herald have, what normally would be the charge for that, for example. Later in my career at Advanced Condé Nast, you can see this happening across all the magazines that Condé Nast owned. A significant organization publishing content in magazines in every continent in the world. You can see the smart ones going to them on a regular basis. Certainly, Coastal Mississippi was one of those smart ones not long ago to take advantage of that. But the earned media side of what you're doing, if there is a place where you can centralize your energy and get big reward from having done that, that's where it is, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is critical to balance the paid advertising that we do, which unfortunately in our local region, they don't hear or see because we need the people from outside to come in and stay overnight. So I understand some of the confusion that may be out there. Well, I don't see that. Well, you're not our market. You're already here. But the earned media is significant. You mentioned Condé Nast. We did take over of their family area, and we didn't do it alone. It was collaboration, and we took 8 partners with us. We were in front of 500 journalists and are seeing the fruits of that labor and those relationships develop as we move forward. It's a significant effort. It's a significant lift. We did feature Coastal Mississippi seafood and many artists, musicians. It was an amazing event. And when we travel together, we can advocate together, and it is a larger impact. We work on a lot of story pitches, but just a few from last year. We were in Southern Living nearly half a dozen times. Now, multiple articles were in there, but here's the dish, right? These are multi-page articles, which a single page estimated valuation, if you were buying an ad, is $238,000. We had 6 stories that were at least one page, if not multiple page. That alone is worth it for the 3 counties who could never individually pull that off with consistency and diversity. I mean, every single county was covered. Let's just give, Bay St. Louis was in Southern Living. not once, but multiple times. That value is nearly impossible to buy on a consistent basis. So that's what it brings you, besides the millions of eyeballs that are going to see and cross-reference your stories. So we have a department, and they're rocking.
Well, you think about the 2026 Rose Bowl Parade. I made a note about that. I know that's more Visit Mississippi, but the reality is, when they said where creativity blooms and people take notice and viewers watch it and hopefully others write about it, the residual effect of something like that can be very significant, can it?
It can. And just being a partner in that was amazing. Hats off to Rochelle Hicks and Visit Mississippi for elevating in a positive way the perception of Mississippi. I am certain that there were multiple folks that were like, Mississippi has ballet? Mississippi has Kermit the Frog? Mississippi has great musicians. There were so many comments. All the partners that participated were there. We had permission from Walter Anderson to have them be front and center on all of the different platforms that were on there. The Orr O'Keefe was on there, Walter Anderson. And we also hosted a separate media dinner for 30 media travel writers and influencers. And we started to see stories from them before the parade even started. So that amplification doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not just we post a Instagram short and it explodes. No, you've got to really work and nurture those relationships and provide quality experiences for those media influencers when we have them in market. And that is really important. Last year, we hosted 28 different trips for media influencers, reporters, story writers, freelancers, all of those. And we have a contract. They have to produce XYZ amount of posts, XYZ amount of stories. So it's not just a hope and a wish.
It's speaking of Rochelle, the leader of Visit Mississippi, the governor mentioned her. I think he literally called her a superstar. Everyone I talked to who has had anything to do with her felt so positive about the role that she's playing in Mississippi. Steve Azar, who also has a show on SuperTalk Mississippi on Thursdays and Fridays, in a Mississippi Minute. He's on my show regularly. We've become very close. He has a great story, but not only did he contribute One Mississippi, the new state song from Mississippi, but he's also the music and cultural ambassador for the state, and he sings Rochelle's praises. But it's important to have great relationships between the state entity and coastal Mississippi. We can't talk enough about why that's important, can we?
We can't. We have an outstanding relationship with Visit Mississippi, and it brings to the coast far more than we are able to do on a national and international level. Their program of work is the strongest I've ever seen. They're very lean and very dedicated. I think that Rochelle and their team and our team work well together because we know that tourism is economic development. And we know our numbers, we know what we employ, we know what it drives to the state. And so when one city wins, the coast wins. And when the coast wins, Mississippi wins. Because we are still standing at 33 to 37% of the tourism revenue that is generated in the state. That is significant. And it doesn't mean that the other destination management organizations aren't doing as well. They are, but they're doing that for their city. And we're doing it for 3 counties and 12 plus cities. So, of course, we're going to be a larger percentage, but it's a significant thing. So So goes the coast. So goes Mississippi.
So, yeah, I say that a lot. Hey, one of the things that the governor mentioned is that this effort to separate the tourism effort, the statewide tourism effort, into its own kind of division or department of the state, get it out from underneath MDA. He hasn't been supportive. He explained his reasoning behind it. He doesn't want another level of bureaucracy. And whether it reports to MDA or reports directly to him, I think the point that he ultimately made, that as long as he's the governor, as long as there's good, strong leadership in that position, we'll be fine. And so I don't think, even if it's a good idea, and we're not exploring that today, even if it's a good idea, I don't think the governor for the rest of his tenure is going to support breaking it out as a separate entity. But it is great to know that under Rochelle's leadership, things continue to chug on down the tracks in a very positive way. Because listen, another thing about the Rose Bowl parade, and really any time we have the opportunity to sing the praises of Mississippi on the tourism side, every time we can say the birthplace of American music, and when people hear that for the first time, and then they said there's no way that is, and then of course you start to explain that to them and understand. And a lot of them understand the blues, but when you break it down even further than that, it really makes so much sense. Incidentally, when we talk about Blues Trail, which is we have a country music trail, we have a civil rights trail, we have trails, but the Blues Trail, one of the most powerful, has positions even over in London, for example. But there are markers in coastal Mississippi. When you think of the Blues Trail, people tend to think of the Mississippi Delta and only the Mississippi Delta. But the story of blues in Mississippi is quite diverse and has touched really every part of the state in one way or the other. It's really touched the world, really. Think about how so many great musicians, from the Rolling Stones to the Beatles to who you name them, have been impacted by the blues and what they have brought to the music scene. But speaking to the birthplace of American music, we've got so much to brag about. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Judy Young. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with my friend Judy Young, who's the Executive Director for Coastal Mississippi, the one big regional effort we formed after Hurricane Katrina, and they're doing really well under Judy's leadership. But, it takes a team. So you've got a board of trustees that is working closely with you to provide direction and, wisdom. And you've got a great team that works with you. Give people a sense of the structure of coastal Mississippi.
We have the 3 counties, and the county supervisors have appointments that they make to our commission board. We have 9 that are from Harrison County, and 3 from Hancock and 3 from Jackson. So folks who are listening to this and you're in the region, those are the folks that you would go to if you had questions or needed more information, if you're not coming directly to us. And they represent their region, their counties, and they oversee everything: the expenditures, the strategy, the program of work, our 2030 plan. It's a team effort, and their input is critical for their counties to understand and have the right focus, especially when we're hosting media or when we're, typically when we host media, they want to hear from more than just us. So we'll tap our commission members to kind of be the local on the ground connection, as well as our Chamber of Commerce executives, other folks that are in the Gulf Coast Business Council, our elected officials. So we try to make sure that there's a fairly equitable exposure. And I think that the makeup of the commission does that.
Yeah, it's and it's a who's who. If you really get into, we won't get into naming all the members, but for people who listen to this show, Jerry St. Pay, Greg Cronin, who is a former chairman of this board and also the current chairman of the Jackson County Economic Development Foundation, Paige Roberts, who is the executive director, CEO essentially of the Jackson County Chamber. And I mean, again, the list goes on and on, but you've got a virtual who's who of leaders engaged in your board. And they really understand the communities from which they come, don't they? Don't they?
They do. We have Jimmy Ladner, who's, out of Hancock County. We have Kay Kell, who didn't single-handedly, but somehow managed to keep the bone there and work on this Amtrak thing for 20 plus years.
Hey, let me stop you there and just simply say, I know Kay from way back when she was working with the city of Pascagoula, but always been a good friend. But I've made this point several times. She was the person who would not let it go, man. She knew that what we would get. We'll come back to this in a second. In fact, we need to talk about this. She knew that the Amtrak that she wanted to have happen here was not the Amtrak we remember. She was on it for over 20 years. It's amazing to me that Kay stood the course. I mean, you talk about a perennial leader in coastal Mississippi. Kay has been that person, hasn't she?
She has, absolutely. And we have new perspectives. We have Jenna Bass, who is, works with Sean Tyndall and an amazing communications professional. We have Robert Scrametta, who is multi-generations. I mean, what is it? Is 100 years they've been doing what they've been doing. It seems like that.
Yeah,
and so when you have those kind of resources.
Excursions, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then, think about long-timers like Rusty David. Could there be any festival in Harrison County, in Biloxi, that he didn't start, participate, or has 40 or 50 years in?
Yeah.
That generational investment with an infusion of new generations that still have that generational investment, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It really does. So let's I mentioned a term, rising tide promoter, before. Is that a term you use in your industry? I just saw it somewhere and I made a note of it. But that, casinos are very focused on bringing people to their place. They want them to come to the Gulf Coast for sure, but they want them to come to their place. A tourism organization like Coastal Mississippi is focused on raising the tide for everyone. But is that a term you guys use in your industry?
We do. It's, the rising tide lifts all boats or ships, or in our case, any number of other things that happen in the blue economy. It is the thing to remember when you live in this kind of region is that the visitors do not see the county lines. They do not see the city limit lines. It is a destination. And if one community wins, it gets exposure and it helps all the other communities. You collectively have a better product and more diversification. When you're in this beautiful coastal beach environment, those indoor casino anchors for this region are critical when we have beautiful days and then we have, Mother Nature kind of flexing a little days. Everything can't be in one pot. You can't have just ecotourism and you can't have just indoor tourism. You've got to diversify your product. And, we have some work to do in some of those areas. I'm a real strong believer in sports tourism. Parents and little athletes, middle athletes, and the big boys and girls, they will always find a way to enable their child to have opportunity and participate. And we're kind of on a precipice there when it comes to that kind of consistent market. We need some indoor anchors. It's a little bit tough. And we do have some great investments going on with cities and counties investing in some turf fields, which are amazing because in our area, it drains quickly. So you can reuse that field much faster than having to cancel a tournament.
Hey, you and I chatted a little bit about this before, but it's been a while. But in the context of what I've been writing about, the need for coastal Mississippi to get our regional economic act together, I've never said we should do away with any any economic development organization, or, it's not just economic development, it's organizations. It's also ports, it's airports, it's all these, just the tourism group. It's all these stakeholders that are involved. I think we got to get our act together so we can determine, as the governor is urging us to, as Bill Cork is urging us to, determine what our regional priorities are. But the thing that you and I chatted about was this youth sports thing. I mean, as a former coach, I've traveled, done travel ball. I've coached for many, many, many years, had kids who came up through that system, and got to see some of the best in communities where they were really all in on this. And it's amazing the economic development that can happen there. We've seen it in coastal Mississippi for sure. But if you were to say, okay, let's do a current process analysis of what's available, and what is it we need to make sure we coordinate it? Because the problem is that a city may say we need to focus on this, and another city may say we need to focus on this, but we're not aligned around what this is, and we end up with too many of this and not enough of that. How do we get our act together from a youth sports point of view? And this is just one great example, actually, of what I would refer to as a regional priority. But how much do you think about that?
I think about it a lot. We have done multiple inventories of facilities and fields, and counties and cities have taken that into account and started to reinvest in what we have. The challenge always is who's going to own what, right? So does Hancock County, with the plans that they have, do they own agri-sports? Should they? It seems like a natural. And in Harrison County, there's a lot that has outdoor capacity in just Harrison County, but they also have the best grass for show jumping and Olympic qualifying horse events. So I had no idea. I've learned so much. This is like the best footing, new vocabulary, that exists out there. And we're in competitions with places like Boca Raton.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to step that up, and we have to be able to dedicate the resources that would keep us in that competitive marketplace. And so then what a couple of folks in Jackson County are working on is maybe some indoor anchors that include maybe a focus on basketball and some baseball. And the thing about youth sports and youth sports facilities is that it is a win-win for residents and for touring teams, because they're typically here on the weekends, touring teams. So the residential community of athletes gets the opportunity to participate in facilities that are far beyond, should we decide to build them, what we currently have.
I love the approach that you're taking, and it connects well to the points that I've been making, and we'll kind of connect some of those dots when we come back with Judy Young from Coastal Mississippi Tourism after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with Judy Young from Coastal Mississippi, our regional tourism effort. When we went to break, though, she was talking about youth sports, and she took it beyond that to equestrian. But the point is sports as an entity, and how we can leverage it as an economic development tool, and how do we determine priority. And what's interesting about what you're doing, when I was leading strategic planning efforts during my entire career, not as someone who was literally leading strategic planning for Knight Ridder, the company that owns the Sun Herald, or when I was a CEO, I often said you can't go to where you want to go if you don't know where you are now. So you've got to understand the current situation. What are our strengths and weaknesses? What are the opportunities and threats of the current situation? And then how do we define regionally how we benefit? How do we create economies of scale around what it is we want to do so we can maximize as quickly as possible the things that will make a difference? And what I love about what you've done your current process analysis on sports facilities, so to speak. And then ultimately the goal is to try to get counties and municipalities to sort of buy into some sort of regional objective as it relates to that, and then we can go on. That's what I've been saying about economic development, because see, that's a form of economic development. That's what that is. What you're doing is economic development. And the ports would say they're trying to do the same thing, both Pascagoula and the Port of Gulfport and what port they have at the Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission. The airports, if you talk to Clay Williams, he will say that he's doing the same thing. And the board that represents him, the 3-member board that represents him, they're working with him to maximize the economic development opportunities that the airport brings. You could say the same thing about Trent Lott Airport. And on and on and on, all these different entities. So it's not a single entity like the Harrison County Development Commission that's responsible for all these things. They have a piece of it. They have industrial parks and utilities and all those things. Same thing with Jackson County. They had that, and Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission, slightly different approach, but still they're working closely with Stennis on all kinds of important stuff. But the point is, there isn't a table where they all go to the same table and say, okay, how are we going to work together to identify what our current situation is and what are our goals for the future? What are these big, hairy, audacious goals that we're creating that's going to take us to the next level? Just like Judy just talked about with sports in general. When we do that, we'll agree that maybe building a 1,000 or 2,000 acre mega site in Harrison County is going to be good for all 3 counties, be great for our state, and so on. We're just not at the same table. Who's going to bring us there? That's important, because right now Judy's having to work. I'm just guessing, Judy, you didn't say this, but you're having to go to each city. Cities are doing their own economic development. How do we get everybody on the same page about how to maximize where we got limited resources. We need to get to where we want to go to be competitive as fast as we can get there with as minimal amount of money invested as we can. And we dang sure don't want to build 2 of these things, one in this city and one over there, and have the cities competing with each other. That's kind of silly if we don't have it now. Let's diversify our options and make it great, like the indoor basketball facility you're talking about for maybe Jackson County or wherever that. We're talking about that on the eastern side of our market. But that's what you're doing, isn't it, Judy? You're trying to work your way through this so that we can make the best decisions possible.
It is, and that is the work. Challenging as it may be, we've made quite a bit of headway, and we do have, as I said, investments that have been made by cities and counties in the last 3 years that are getting us to that point. And I think that in the long run we can get there, but it does involve a lot of money. I mean, those facilities are not inexpensive, and while they're not an industrial or manufacturing investment, they are an investment in what traditional economic development prospects want. You know, when you've got a company and it's thinking about coming here, they're going to have to relocate, and they may have kids, and they expect, based on what their kids are interested in, for a community to accommodate that. And that is part of the relocation package. What we provide as a community for an industrial prospect is as important as the incentive that would be provided for them to get here.
That's the point that I was making at the beginning, that everything we do to improve tourism also improves quality of life in coastal Mississippi. And one entity that I didn't mention, we got less than a minute left, is the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. You know, with the new arena going up in Mobile, we've got to really have some serious conversations about, do we build a new one or do we enhance the one we have? Matt McDonald leaves as an executive director with a new executive director coming on. Where does that fit into the priorities of coastal Mississippi? See, we got to be able to have multiple conversations at one time, and we're able to do it. But we got to get to multitasking rapidly and prioritize. That's what the governor's screaming to us. Prioritize where you want to go, and he'll help us find the money. That's what we need to focus on. Listen, Judy, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. You're a terrific leader, and I always enjoy spending time with you.
Thank you very much. You know, it's a great place, and tourism is often perceived as the fun people, but it's $2 billion is serious business.
It is very serious business. 15 million people. Woo! That's a big one. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.